All right, so you want to dive deep into Bitcoin, huh? Well, you've come to the right place. We've got a mountain of sources here just begging to be explored. This is
Yeah.
going to be fun.
Yeah, it's a real rabbit hole, Bitcoin. And there's so much more to it than just the technical stuff.
Right, exactly. And that's what we're here for, to go beyond the headlines, beyond the hype. So let's start at the very beginning. Where does something like Bitcoin even come from?
Well, every good origin story needs a little mystery,
Yeah,
right?
I'm intrigued. Go on.
Okay, so Bitcoin is no different.
Hmm.
It all starts with this enigmatic figure. Or maybe it was a group of people. We still don't know for sure. But they went by the name Satoshi Nakamoto.
Satoshi Nakamoto. It's crazy that this whole thing, this whole Bitcoin universe, was set in motion by someone or some group that remains completely anonymous.
It really is.
Yeah.
And get this, in 2008, they released this white paper. Think of it like a blueprint. And the title, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system.
Okay, catchy. But it sounds like more than just a techie document.
Oh, absolutely. This was a direct challenge to the entire traditional financial system. They were proposing a decentralized digital currency, free from the control of any bank or government.
Wow. That must have ruffled some feathers. A truly decentralized system. It sounds almost too good to be true.
Right. But here's the thing. Bitcoin's origins actually go back even further than that 2008 white paper.
Oh, really?
Yeah, to really understand it, we need to go back to the work of this guy, David Chaum.
Okay, and who is David Chaum in this story?
So back in the 1980s, Chaum was already way ahead of his time. He was really into this idea of digital cash, like really into it.
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah, he was deeply concerned about privacy in the digital age, which, very relevant today. And he wanted to create a way for people to transact online anonymously and securely. He actually developed something called blind signatures. It's a cryptographic technique that, believe it or not, became a foundational concept for digital currencies, including Bitcoin.
So it sounds like Satoshi Nakamoto wasn't working in a vacuum. They were building on years of research and experimentation.
Exactly. Nakamoto took Chaum ideas about digital cash and anonymity and combined them with this, well, at the time, revolutionary technology called blockchain.
Oh, yes, blockchain. It's a word we hear everywhere these days, but I think a lot of people might not actually understand what it is. Could you break it down for us?
Sure, imagine a digital ledger, like a record book. But instead of being kept in a single place, it's distributed across a vast network of computers. So every single transaction, let's say you send me some Bitcoin that gets added to this ledger as a block. And these blocks are all linked together chronologically, creating a chain of transactions. Blockchain.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. So instead of a bank keeping track of all the transactions with blockchain, it's this vast decentralized network. That's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is. And this whole distributed nature is what makes Bitcoin so secure. Because the ledger is spread across so many computers, it's incredibly difficult for anyone to tamper with it. Like, good luck trying to hack into all of those computers at once.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like trying to rob a bank, but instead of one vault, the money is scattered in tiny amounts all over the world. Good luck collecting all of that.
Exactly. Now, speaking of early adoption, one of the sources you shared, a study from MIT, really caught my attention.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one. What was it about again?
It involved giving Bitcoin to incoming freshmen.
Like to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
To see how they would use it.
Interesting. What did they find?
Well, they wanted to understand how early access to a new technology influences this adoption. Like, do people who get in early end up shaping how that technology is used?
Makes sense.
Right? So what they found was that the students who received Bitcoin weren't just holding on to it as a novelty. They were more likely to actually use it to experiment with it, even to get their friends involved.
So it seems like giving people a taste of something new can really spark their curiosity and encourage them to become users, even advocates.
Exactly. And this wasn't just about the students getting free Bitcoin. The study highlighted that the act of engaging with the technology, using it, discussing it, even facing its limitations early on, played a crucial role in its adoption. It speaks to the power of hands-on experience, especially when it comes to something as disruptive as Bitcoin.
For sure. It reminds me of the early days of the internet. People who were willing to tinker and explore ended up shaping how we use it today.
It's a similar concept.
Yeah.
And this takes us beyond the technology itself. Bitcoin isn't just lines of code and algorithms.
Right, it's a movement.
Exactly. It's a community, a movement. There are these vibrant gatherings, Bitcoin conferences, online forums, even Bitcoin-themed art and music.
It's everywhere.
It really is. It's become a cultural phenomenon as much as a technological one.
Yeah.
And like any cultural movement, it's had its share of growing pains.
Right. No movement is without its challenges.
Exactly. We can't talk about Bitcoin's journey without addressing the challenges and controversies.
Right. It hasn't always been smooth sailing.
Yeah.
What are some of the major hurdles Bitcoin has faced?
Yeah, for sure. It's almost like Bitcoin has had a similar trajectory to the internet itself. Early excitement, followed by skepticism, and then those inevitable growing pains.
It's a great comparison. And just like the early days of the internet, Bitcoin has faced its share of security concerns.
Right, like that Mt. Gox hack back in, was it 2014? That was a big deal, wasn't it? Yeah. It was huge, yeah. For those who maybe weren't following Bitcoin back then, Mt. Gox was one of the first Bitcoin exchanges. And when it got hacked and all that Bitcoin was stolen, millions of dollars, it was a harsh reminder that security in this space is, well, essential.
Yeah, definitely not something you want to mess around with. I bet that really fueled the fire for people who are already skeptical of Bitcoin. Speaking of skepticism, what about regulation? It seems like government's been trying to figure out what to do with Bitcoin since day one.
Absolutely. It's been a huge point of contention. You have some governments that see Bitcoin as a threat, like it undermines their control over monetary policy. So they come in with strict regulations, try to rein it in.
Makes sense.
And then you have others who see it as this opportunity for innovation, so they take a more hands-off approach.
So it's all over the map, really. With all these different approaches, who knows what the future holds? Which, I guess, brings us to the million-dollar question. Where does Bitcoin go from here? What's next?
Honestly, trying to predict the future of something as, let's say, unpredictable as Bitcoin, it's nearly impossible. But we can look at where things are headed, check out some expert opinions, and maybe get a glimpse of what might be in store.
Okay, so what are the sources saying? Any predictions about Bitcoin's future?
Well, one thing that keeps coming up is the idea of Bitcoin becoming more integrated into our everyday lives.
You mean like beyond the early adopters, the tech-savvy folks?
Exactly. Imagine using Bitcoin to pay for, I don't know, groceries, booking a flight, even paying your taxes.
Wow, that would be something.
Right. And it could happen. As more businesses and institutions start accepting it, using it, Bitcoin could become as commonplace as, say, using a credit card or a digital wallet even.
That makes sense. But what about the whole volatility thing? We all hear about how much the price of Bitcoin can fluctuate. Doesn't seem ideal for everyday transactions.
Yeah, the volatility has been a concern for sure. But it is worth pointing out that as Bitcoin matures, those price swings, they're becoming less dramatic. And besides, people are already developing solutions. Things like stablecoins, which are pegged to the value of existing currencies to try and smooth things out.
Interesting. So increased adoption, less volatility. Anything else that our sources highlight when they talk about Bitcoin's potential?
Yeah, actually, one of the most compelling arguments is Bitcoin's potential to reach the people who need it most, the unbanked.
That was a big theme in the materials you shared. What does that look like in practice?
So there are literally billions of people around the world without access to traditional banking systems. Maybe they're in a remote location, or they lack proper ID, or they simply can't get approved for an account. Bitcoin has the potential to change all of that. It could give them a way to participate in the global economy, send and receive money, access financial services.
It's like taking all those traditional gatekeepers out of the equation.
Exactly. Give the power back to the people. Of course, there are still hurdles to overcome. Education, for one. People need to know how to use Bitcoin safely and securely. But the potential is there, and it's huge.
Wow. It's a lot to wrap your head around. This idea that something that came from lines of code could have such a massive impact on the world.
It really is. Yeah. And I think that's what makes it so fascinating, so captivating. It's more than just technology or finance. It's about reshaping our world, potentially.
Well said. This has been a real eye-opener, this deep dive. But before we go, one last thought for you all at home to ponder. We talked earlier about Bitcoin having its fair share of growing pains. And as Bitcoin evolves, it begs a crucial question. How do we balance the need for innovation with the importance of, responsible development and regulation? It's a delicate dance, right? And one that'll undoubtedly shape the future of Bitcoin and its role in the world. That's our deep dive on Bitcoin. We hope you found it insightful, maybe even a little inspiring. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next one.